Now it's usually the time for the Dvar Torah, but as I mentioned before, it won't come from me this Shabbat. And I understand, and I mentioned this many times, related to many different things, that sometimes in life we have at least two ways where we can learn. And I always say that those two ways start with the letter M. Okay? The first one is mistakes. You make a mistake, you learn. You make another mistake, you learn. But I was told once that there is a better way of learning, that is through mentors. Why is it so important to learn from mentors? Mentors usually are people who already make those mistakes and they learn from them. So they will teach you what do you have to do so you won't make those mistakes. So it's very important sometimes to look around and to learn from the wisdom of other people that sometimes we have next to us without even realizing who they are. So I would like to point out this morning to my favorite chef, Richard Weiss, that today he becomes our mentor, a person who is here to inspire us and to give us words of advice so we will be able to avoid certain mistakes, so we can go through life in a better way. So this is a very interesting experience for all of us. But before we invite Richard to come here, I would like to give you a little bit of a bio so you know who he is, okay? Richard was born in 1974. Means I'm your senior by 4 years. Toulon and Paulette Weiss. He graduated from the University of Winnipeg Collegiate in 1992 and went off to Israel a few months later. He returned home after his IDF service in 1997. That means that he's also an IDF veteran, and that makes us all so proud. Richard graduated also from the Red River College Culinary Arts in year 2000 and is currently a chef at an addiction treatment center. Richard is going to talk about his history, family, education, IDF service, and Israel advocacy as well. He will speak about his addiction and how it progressed to the point of requiring rehab, how the rabbis and Shaare Zedek were instrumental in reconnecting with God, and how he's staying sober while at the same time helping others. Richard will also explain how addiction doesn't care about your background, Jewish or not, and how there are many Jews suffering silently, and what as a community we can do to help. So it's my great pleasure to invite to the Bima, Chef Richard Weiss.
All right. Wow, I'm a little bit nervous. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Raphael, son of Labe, but my friends call me Richard. So, as Rabbi Mass had mentioned, I was born and raised here in Winnipeg. Very fortunate to, I guess, have won the lottery, to have been born to a good family that cared about me. Thank you. And a family that has always had my best interests in mind. Despite that, addiction found its way into my life, and if things weren't done when they were done, I don't think I'd be here today to tell you this story. I won't go into the schools as that was already mentioned, but I guess we'll get started with a bit of my addiction history and kind of we'll move along from there. I started drinking at a pretty young age. I guess as soon as as soon as the bar mitzvah circuit happened for my age group, and there's always an open bar, and there's always someone willing to supply the kids with drinks. And I was always the one who, at 12 years old, was probably drunker than the adults. And that went on, and then I kind of discovered marijuana and other drugs. And then after grade 12, I thought, maybe I'll go to Israel, and that'll help take care of my drug problem. The army will straighten me out. I moved to Israel after being there as a tourist after high school. I fell in love with the country, still love the country, love everything about the country. It's the greatest place in the world. I moved there and made Aliyah in '94. I worked as a bouncer at a nightclub. So far Israel hadn't cured my alcohol problem, because working at a nightclub, the booze was free and it was plentiful. I went into the Army in the summer of '95. I served for 2 years until I was 23 years old, and then I came home in '97. While I was too afraid to use any drugs while I was in the Army, because the threat of the drug tests were always looming, I drank, and boy, did I ever drink. Drank to the point of pretty well every time I'd start, I'd keep on going until I was either out of money or couldn't stand anymore. And then I came home from Israel after the Army, and I discovered what a real drug problem was. I got into some really hard and bad stuff. I was addicted to cocaine. I was addicted to crack. I was addicted to crystal meth. My addiction progressed to the point where I was in my late 20s, unemployable, and living in my parents' basement. Not a moment I'm very proud of. Eventually, I guess enough had become enough, and my parents started to see what was going on, and we had an intervention in Dr. Steinberg's office, and I'm grateful for that moment, because that was, I guess, the TSN turning point of my life. That was a safe place for me to confess to my family that I'd been into the drugs, and exactly what drugs I'd been into, and what was going on in my life. And the result of that meeting was go to rehab, go directly to rehab, do not stop at the money mart, do not collect $200. And I went to the AFM. I was at the AFM June 23rd, 2003. I was there for 3.5 weeks. I was one of the first people there for meth, not the first, certainly not the last, and one of the very few that never had to go back. After the AFM, I was at a treatment center called Tamarack. It was a privately funded treatment center. I was there for 8.5 weeks. And after that, I went to meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings. I met some good people in recovery, some people that really helped me along the way, some people that were part of this community. And to protect their anonymity, I'm not going to mention names, but I will say, if not for those Jewish people that were in recovery at that time, I don't know if I would have stuck it out, because they were the only people who I really felt could understand what it's like to be a Jewish addict, because there weren't many Jews in recovery at that time. They helped me tremendously, and they inspired me to help others. And I had a flock of people that I was sponsoring, took them to meetings, and we all kind of got sober together. I did a lot of my step work with a lot of the clergy here at the shul. I believe that the clergy, from the time I went into recovery up until now, they've all taken a very active role in my recovery and in my well-being, and for that I am grateful, because I needed it. And I don't think I would have made it this far if not for the help that I was given for free. It's a scary thought. I mean, there's probably, in In 2019, I think there was about 15,000 Jewish people in Winnipeg. I imagine that number has gone up. According to the books and the stats and all of that, 1 out of 5 people will have trouble with addiction in their life. So if we take 20% of 15,000, that's 3,000 people. So there's probably 3,000 people in our community right now that are suffering silently, that don't know that there's help out there, that need our help, but there's kind of a misconception that Jews don't do coke. Jews don't smoke meth or smoke crack. And I'm here to say that addiction really doesn't care if you're Jewish, if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, or even an atheist. And it's hard. It's almost impossible without help to get better. I tried my way and on my own countless and countless and countless times to stop using. And as soon as the weekend and the paycheck came, I was off to the races. And it's not because I didn't want to stay sober, it's because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin that the drugs were the only thing that made my skin stop slithering on me. It was a horrible way to live. But I found recovery, and other people can find recovery too, because it is out there. And the people that are suffering silently, they need our help. It's not a matter of coddling. It's not a matter of hugging and saying, oh, it's okay, you'll be all right. Sometimes some tough love is required, but what most of all is required is just to show that there is a better way. I had mentioned before that I had won the lottery as far as my family goes. When I was in rehab, I remember we were doing an exercise in our group therapy, and the leader of the counselor asked us to talk about our very, very first memory. And we went around the room, and my very first memory, it was shortly after my sister was born. My mom took me to go and see Star Wars in 1977. So I shared that. That was my first memory. And there was a young man in the group, I don't even remember his name, but his first memory was about 1 or 2 years old, his mother throwing him in the garbage. So, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I came out of rehab home to a family that really had my best interest at heart. They watched me. They weren't going to let me, fall again. They were there for me. I never came home to see my mom passed out on the floor or my dad abusing anyone. I'm very fortunate that I was born into a good family. I think, a lot of us are very fortunate in that sense because, there's a lot out there that we don't really know about that's not very pretty. The fellowships that I attended, there was a lot of talk about spirituality, a lot of talk about the 12 steps. Of all of the 12 steps, the only step that really has anything to do with the addiction or alcoholism is step 1, that we're powerless over our addiction and that our life had become unmanageable. The rest of the 12 steps is finding a higher power, believing in that higher power, trusting that higher power so then we can clean up our mess, make things right, and then help others. So that's kind of, right now I'm in the phase of help others. I'm very fortunate that in 20 years I haven't had to go back to rehab. In 20 years my relationship with my family, with myself, and with God has gotten better and better every day. It wasn't just me who did the work. I mean, my family did the work too. They were there for me. They still are there for me. I don't know where I'd be without you guys. You guys are my world. I love you very much. What else can I say? I kind of got myself choked up and lost my spot here. I firmly believe that my sobriety today is what allows me to do everything I do in my life. I'm a pro-Israel activist. Nobody would take me seriously if I was out marching all wasted. I'm a chef. And I wouldn't have climbed up the industry like I have had I not sobered up. Addiction and alcoholism is a big occupational hazard in the culinary world. If 1 in 5, I guess, normal people would suffer from addiction, I think 1 in 2 in the culinary world suffer from addiction. So it's there and it's real. I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is that there are Jewish people in Winnipeg that need our help. A lot of them don't know where to turn, don't know what to say, or how to ask for help. We have to be there for them. Not to hug them and tell them it's all right, but to encourage them to take that help to the next level and go get professional help. To encourage them to go into treatment, and then to be there to show them that we're there for them after treatment and for the rest of their lives. It's amazing how 21 years ago, I didn't want to live anymore. I used to secretly hope every time I'd consume any of the drugs that this would be the one that did me in, because I didn't want to face the world tomorrow. And now I'm in a point in my life where, thank God things didn't work out the way I wanted it back then, because I have a lot to live for, and my life has really turned around, and I couldn't have done it without the help of everyone in my life. And I am eternally grateful, and thanks for hearing my story.
Yasher Koach, Richard. Thank you so much, really.
Yasher Koach to Chef Richard Weiss. And I hope those words serve as an inspiration for all of us, and may have all have the blessing and the opportunity to try one of his pizzas. That I can tell you, they're amazing. Thank you, Richard.